know the man is to know someone who literally embodies the spirit of America. Strong, freedom-loving, independent, optimistic, and willing to fight every day for what he believes in and for the American people. I mean, he's a doer. He's a doer in a game usually reserved for talkers. And when he does his talking, he doesn't go tiptoeing around all those rules of political correctness that the media puts in the way of men and women that want to make a difference. He speaks from his mind. He speaks from his heart. The American people hear him loud and clear, and they're going to send him straight to the White House. I got to tell you, it's been kind of fun to watch at times. It really has been. I mean, the party in power seems helpless to figure out our nominee, my running mate. They really do sometimes. And, of course, I'm referring to the media, right? Is that all right? Thanks a lot for that. Really, the media and the Democrats, they seem helpless to figure him out. They all keep telling each other the usual methods, the usual methods are going to work against him. Now we got him. He said this. He tweeted that. They think they finally got him right where they want him, and then they turn on the TV the next morning, and Donald Trump is still standing strong, fighting for the American people. And he's going to carry that fight all the way to the White House. I promise you. But I've gotten to know this good man. And I'll tell you what, he's a guy that loves his family and he loves his country. And he's someone who's never forgotten the men and women who built this country. The people in this country who work with their hands, who grow the food, who build our roads and bridges. To know Donald Trump is really to know a man who at his very core is a builder. He sees a vacant lot and he thinks a skyscraper. He really does. And he's never forgotten the people that really do the work, that tend to our sick, that teach our kids. And I'll tell you what in particular. Donald Trump will never forget or fail to support the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement in the United States of America at every level. There's a lot of members of the law enforcement community here in Allen County and Fort Wayne in the state of Indiana. Before you sit down, would you just show these law enforcement officers in these challenging times how much we appreciate what they and their families do to protect our families? Thanks, everybody. I just promise you, as a chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, a President Donald Trump will never fail to recognize that the men and women in law enforcement in this country are a force for good. They are the best of us, and he will ensure that they have the resources and the tools to protect our families and go home safe to theirs. But this election is about a choice, and I wanted to run up here to Fort Wayne to talk about that choice, both in the Hoosier State and that we as Americans face. And it really is amazing what the other side has come up with. At the very moment that America is crying out for something new and different, the other party has answered with a stale agenda and the most predictable of names. And people in both parties are restless for change. And the Democratic Party has literally nominated someone who personifies the failed status quo in Washington, D.C. So I want to say to my fellow Hoosiers, if you want change, if you want a stronger America at home and abroad that stands by our Constitution and the highest standards in public life, we have to decide here and now in the Hoosier State that Hillary Clinton will never be elected president of the United States of America. And despite the avalanche of insults coming out of their campaign, this campaign really is about issues of enormous importance in the life of this nation. That's why I answered the call when it came that night. And it's why we need to make sure that the state of Indiana does our part to lead the way. I want Indiana, this is my request, as we've done so many times before, I want Indiana to be the first state on the board to elect Donald Trump as the 45th president of the United States of America. Can we do that? Number one. 601. The issues in this campaign are real and of enormous consequence in the life of the nation. They are about our security. They're about prosperity. It's about the Supreme Court, and it's about ensuring the highest standards of integrity are in the highest office in the land. On the front of security, I just have to tell you, it grieves my heart to think that 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's policies have weakened America's place in the world and emboldened the enemies of this country. Terrorist attacks at home and abroad, attempted coup among allies. I mean, if you looked at a picture of a map of the wider Middle East the day that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton took over American foreign policy, and you took a picture of a map today, it wouldn't even look like the same part of the world. You know, history teaches us that weakness arouses evil. And I would submit to you, my fellow Hoosiers, that Hillary Clinton, the architect of Barack Obama's foreign policy, that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's foreign policy of leading from behind, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, and paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states is the very image of weakness on the world stage. Let me make you a promise. When Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we won't be paying ransom to terrorists or terrorist sponsoring states. They'll be paying a price. They'll be paying a price if they threaten the American people or threaten our allies. And the truth of the matter is, specifically to Hillary Clinton, it's important that we talk about the record. And I'm looking forward to that debate on Tuesday night. Because this election is about, it is about a choice. And people need to think really hard about the record that Hillary Clinton brings on the foreign stage. We hear about her great experience on the foreign stage. But remember this, it was Hillary Clinton. It was Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State who supported Barack Obama's efforts to withdraw all U.S. forces from Operation Iraqi Freedom without a new status of forces agreement, without leaving a single combat troop in Iraq. It created the very vacuum in which ISIS was able to rise up and overrun the gains that the American soldier and the families of our soldiers had won at enormous sacrifice. It's extraordinary. I mean, before I move on, I have to pause and ask, would those of you who are able to stand, who've worn the uniform of the United States of America, would you just please stand or raise your hand and allow us to thank you one more time for your service to this nation in uniform? It grieves my heart. I traveled in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan for 10 years in a row when I represented part of Allen County in Washington, D.C. I stood quietly at the gravesides of soldiers who paid the ultimate sacrifice, and to see those gains squandered by a lack of leadership by this administration and our Secretary of State grieves my heart. It's also important to remember it was Hillary Clinton who instigated the disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. I mean, for years it was the policy of the United States of America that we would impose punishing sanctions on Iran until they completely abandoned their nuclear ambitions. But under this administration, a deal was signed that only achieved a delay in the nuclear ambitions of the leading state sponsor of terrorism. And lastly, it was Hillary Clinton and her State Department who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi, sent no reinforcements as the mortars fell and waves of terrorist assault arrived. After it was over, told the parents of the 4 fallen that it was because of a video that had been produced in Florida, when in fact Congress found that there were emails that they knew it was a terrorist attack that day on the anniversary of 9/11 4 years ago. And when she was confronted about it before the Senate, Hillary Clinton actually said, quote, "What difference at this point does it make?" Oh, my fellow Hoosiers, as the proud father of a United States Marine, let me just say this. Anyone who said that